Right, today I'm interviewing Jo Harlow, who's a guitarist and guitar teacher in the Kent area. Is it just Kent?
Yes, it is, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
All around Kent.
Right,
really.
okay.
Yeah.
So welcome, Jo.
Thank you for having me.
That's all right. It's a pleasure. So the idea behind this podcast is obviously to get people's stories to help other people who are interested in music.
Other crazy people who
Yes,
might be
exactly.
following along.
Or the ones that we stop from being bankers and accountants and stuff like that.
That's always worthwhile, I think.
It is, I think so, yeah. That's our way to be subversive. So tell me a little bit about how you got involved just in music generally. You know, I know you learnt at school, but what's your story?
Of course, yeah. So, well, I think probably the first time that I got really seriously interested in music was, I'd always grown up around it. My dad has a huge record collection, even sort of to this day, and every sort of weekend he would put on an LP of something, either Beethoven or Bach, up to sort of soul and bands like Free, Rolling Stones, all that sort of thing.
So very eclectic.
I've always been interested in it. Yes, always kind of had a feel for it, if you like. But I think I can remember listening to, I think it was Starman, the David Bowie song, just on the radio, which is out of time for me because I grew up in the sort of 80s and 90s, but obviously it's kind of early 70s. But I heard that and I just thought, actually, this is probably something I could do.
Yeah.
I can kind of.
That's interesting, that, because there are definitely songs that are almost like sort of touchstones for people, and Starman is actually one of them for people because there's the famous Top of the Pops clip with Bowie doing Starman, which is always often cited by people as being an important moment in their life. So I thought that was fascinating that you should say that that's something that you you sort of picked up on.
Pick up on that one
as
well. It's in a weird key as well. It's a strange piece to sort of think, oh, that's, there's not an awful lot of guitar on it.
No.
But I definitely was sort of influenced, if you like, by the Mick Ronson's playing.
Yeah.
And even though I don't play like him today, I wouldn't say, but obviously, how you start is often not where you end up.
No, absolutely.
In terms of playing, and I sadly don't really listen to an awful lot of Bowie now. I'm sort of more jazz orientated, I suppose you could say, but yeah, that was where it kind of all started. I think.
Actually, though, if you think about it, the chords and the sequences in that song are actually slightly jazzy, aren't they?
They're a little bit, yeah.
Aren't they? Because you've got some interesting things going on.
It's in B flat or F or something.
Yeah, I think it's in F, isn't it?
Something, yeah.
So what happened then once you got you thought, oh yeah, right, okay, guitar, this is what
then, yes. Then, obviously, I sort of mentioned it to my parents, and my mum said, not right now, because I was still in primary school at that point.
Oh, right.
So this must have been 80s or very early 90s. And she said, well, wait until you're in secondary school and see if you're still as keen then. So I think she thought it might be a passing phase. And of course, when I got to secondary school, there was a guitar teacher there, who you might have known.
Yes, I might have known. It was me in a younger...
Yes, younger days.
Yeah, incarnation. Yeah.
No different at all,
No. So that's how you got started.
And yes, and then just sort of lots of time. I think that's something that kids actually are going to miss out on nowadays, sadly, is just having that vast amount of time when you got in from school in the evenings just to sit and noodle. I had a keyboard in my bedroom and the guitars, and I would just sit and write things and create. And I'd learnt recorder at primary school anyway, as most kids do, I think, and so it just sort of went from there then. So I wasn't necessarily always practising what you'd given me to practice, but I was going home.
Well, the thing is, you're probably aware of this anyway, aren't you? Because I obviously have taught a lot of people that become sort of professional players and teachers.
That's right. Yeah.
And my point on this was always that it's more about igniting sort of interest about the music, and the point really, and it has become even more so in time, that you could show somebody something in such a way that you open a door. So, for instance, if you if I'd shown you the chords for something, the idea would be to show you how those chords worked. And it may be just that song that you looked at, but then I'd sort of point out a few other songs that would be doing the same thing.
Yes.
So the idea would have been for you to have gone away and then run with that, which is how I tend to do things.
Yes.
So it's really a case of trying to fire somebody's enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Now you said something very interesting there, because this is one of the reasons why I'm doing this podcast and got this Patreon thing going, is that there is a real problem in education. The children aren't given enough arts subjects, and there is far too much applied to academic subjects.
Yes.
To the point that we're not just killing the arts in this country, but we're actually destroying the children because they're not able to. There are a lot of gaps left with academic learning.
Yes.
Where if you just think that everything is point A to point B to point C, you're missing everything else, all the connective tissue that comes with artistic thinking, whether
it's
that's
being a well-rounded human being.
Absolutely,
well.
we're not creating those people,
No.
and I think that the evidence is of that is the fact there are so many depressed children.
Yes,
and
who are
young
not
teenagers
getting the opportunity to go and play, experiment, create.
Exactly. Well, the
things.
problem is there's no way of finding an answer to something when you're thinking in a linear way. Now, as an artist, you know that, because it's like all these things. You might be writing a piece of music, or you're doing something, and the answer's not there. You can't find it, and then you go away, and think, being absolutely disgusted about the fact you can't get an answer to something, and it comes to you out the blue, and you get used to that, don't you?
Yeah.
As an
absolutely.
artistic thing,
going away for a while, thinking I can't get it today, I'll come back to it tomorrow, and suddenly you've found a different approach.
And that doesn't come from a linear way of thinking.
No, I do. I love teaching those kids. Actually, I've had quite a few who will approach things sort of sideways on. I would say their parents. They approach things from an angle. And they may not be even doing that well in their sort of academic tests and things, but they are clever because they found a different way around.
Totally agree with you.
They're
I
smart.
totally agree with you, because that is one of the issues that I've had with the way the system worked years ago. And now it's just worse. I think we've just got the worst of everything at the moment.
I think it's very sad that it's often. In fact, when you asked me to do these, I was thinking about working in music. Once I started teaching, which is I've been doing it full time now for I worked out sort of 13 years, and before that for a few years as well. Once you start, you don't kind of look back. But I thought, where did this kind of come from? And I've been reading actually the Steve Lukather biography at the moment, which is really interesting. And he's one of those guitarists that I've really sort of come to admire. And he talks about that pride of working in music. Obviously, he was a session player, so that's different to what I've done going into the teaching. But you do feel a certain sense of pride.
Of course you do, yeah, absolutely, totally agree.
And if I had followed what I was told, so it was good really in that sense that I was obstinate. But I remember going along for a careers advice interview, and the lady saying, have you any ideas of what you'd like to do? And at the age of I was probably about 15, 16 at that point, and I said, I'd like to teach guitar actually. I'm starting to think that would be good. And
I'll
she
be
said,
interested to hear what the response to that would be.
I'm not sure if that's the way it's done now, but she said, I don't really think guitar and music is actually a way of life, is a way of earning a living. It's not a job. And she said, well, maybe you could get a job. I think she was thinking a nice sensible job in a suit probably, and working in an office. And she said maybe you could get a job and then just play in your spare time, because music is a hobby really. I mean, bless her, maybe that was the way she
I had a very similar experience actually about this. I remember going to a careers advisor, and in those days it was somebody who seemed to be on their own in a little room stuck in the top of a rotten old office somewhere. It wasn't as geared up as it was when you were at school.
No.
And I remember walking in, and there was an elderly lady who obviously had something wrong with her leg, because she was sort of limping. around. And she said, "Well, dear, what would you like to do?" And I said, "Well, I want to be a professional musician." And of course, at the time, there weren't even decent guitar exams around. I mean, it was okay to do classical guitar, you could do, but you couldn't do anything else.
No, they didn't come in until
No, that's right. And she said, "So what would you?" So I said, "Well, I want to be a professional musician." So she went over to this little box of index cards, and she sort of rummaged through these and pulled out this card, and she came over and gave it to me, and it had on the top musician, and underneath it had typed out, "The BBC aren't currently looking for any musicians for the orchestra." And I just thought, this is ridiculous. And of course, at the time, I would have actually normally have said something, but I just thought there's no point.
No.
So I ended up getting a job in a bank for a while up in London, but just enough time for me to get all the other stuff together. But it was, very similar, this sort of thing of being put off.
Yes, yeah.
And I'm not 100% sure about even if people are encouraged about music, because I think there are certain things that you need to learn about music, in that you've got to think of music more entrepreneurially. So you've got to think of it like running your own business.
Yes, yeah.
But I think really you could have gone to a careers talk and sat there and said, "Well, actually, I thought I might become a serial murderer," and that you probably would have got a better response than saying that you were going to be a professional guitar player.
You might be right. I'm not sure if they do courses in that now.
No, but I think that's something you can do. It's a vocational thing that you do in your spare time.
You do it for the love of it, yeah.
Yeah, do it for the love
of music,
yeah. Yeah, like music. But
and you might have to be just as crazy sometimes, I think.
I think actually that's the point, and maybe in a way that might be a good thing, that the people who are crazy enough to go like, well,
it didn't have an influence on me to the point. Well, it had more of an influence of strengthening my kind of resolve, if you like, to go and do
actually is what I mean, because that was exactly the same thing as me. Because once you get,
thought, well, that's clearly rubbish, and off I go.
Yeah, and you did it.
Yeah,
and you did it.
Exactly.
I
mean, it's not always the easiest way to earn a living, but it's doing something you enjoy. And the other thing that I heard quite a lot growing up, because my dad had a sensible job around the dinner table, was he would come home from work. He was a legal executive, and he'd come home from work and say, "We don't talk about work around the dinner table. Work is a dirty word." And I thought, how great would it be though if it wasn't? If you get up every day, you're going to have to do this 5 days a week. You might as well get up and think, this isn't too bad. This is all right. I can live with this, and I can go home and chat about it. As you know, my other half is a musician and music teacher as well. So we'd go home, we discuss it.
Absolutely.
We may not have any friends, but we discuss scales and we discuss chords. And
you would be discussing scales.
Yeah.
But that is the point, I think, is this business of, you get a job that you don't like, and particularly, get a job, and after you've been to university and got a whopping debt to do a job that you don't like.
Yes.
As far as I'm concerned, is completely bonkers.
Just to pay off the whopping debt, which you got training up for the job that you didn't particularly want in the first place. Yeah.
So this is one of the things I think is an important point, because I think with music and art just generally, but obviously we come from a perspective of music, you have to do a lot of this soul-searching stuff to understand about yourself and music in order to become a musician.
Yes.
If that makes sense. And you have to explore how you think, because you're dealing with yourself all the time. When you're learning something, why is it I can't get that bit right? Why is it I can't remember this? Why is it that my fingers don't move fast enough? Blah, 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 right? Yeah. And you're always pushing yourself to a point where I don't like to use the word developing, but developing. Do you do that did you do that when you were a solicitor? I mean, do you know what I mean? You might be learning more stuff from the point of view of, oh, they've just changed this law about blah de blah de blah. But
exactly.
you know, does that come into it? And I can't see that it does.
No. It may fire up some people working in that kind of, and if it's what you really want to do, then obviously.
I can imagine if you had the opportunity to hang somebody, that could be quite motivating. But I mean,
just taking a dark turn.
Yes, exactly. But I'm just thinking about.
I do wonder. Yes, those kind of daily things where you learn something about yourself.
Yes.
And I mean, I do bits of exercise just to try and keep things going, and with running you get quite a similar idea. Not that I do long distances or anything, but you get that idea of it's not the end, the finish line.
No.
It's the process,
Yeah.
which is very much like learning.
Absolutely
something.
to do with music, isn't it?
Yeah.
Completely.
It really is.
I mean, it's like life. It's a journey. You don't want to get to the end, particularly.
No, it is.
You know what I mean?
It sounds a bit corny, but it is the process.
It is the process, absolutely.
And you
totally
do get
agree.
so much out of it.
Yes.
To the point where when you come to the end of it and you perform something or whatever you've been practicing it for, I often find it's straight on to the next project. I tend not to keep playing it over and over again. Perhaps I should, because then your repertoire grows, of course. But you move on to something else and you think, right, what can I do now?
Yes, no, I agree with that.
And
totally.
the best students are always the ones who, you don't often get it with very young children. It's often something that comes out more mid-teens, and later. But when you get a kid who will just keep going at something, they'll play it once, go, no, that was wrong, play it again, no, that was wrong, play it again, without getting angry or upset or anything like that, just keep going. And I always say to them, that's the mindset you need, really. You can't have a mindset where you go, I've got it wrong the first time, so I won't try.
No, but that's not the rule of an artist anyway, is it? It's literally is that sort of thing of exploring what that is. I'm quite interested also in that sort of way of thinking where discomfort is a powerful transformative thing, because you certainly have to go through that with music. That sort of thing of people turning, I thought kids say, oh, I got problems with my fingers. I go, great, lovely. Is there enough blood yet? And they go they look in horror, and you go, no, seriously, you've got to be playing enough so you go through that boundary. Just in the same way you're talking about running, you've got to go through that barrier. Because that's the stuff that stops all the other idiots going through, right? It's a doorway.
Apparently your body always keeps a certain amount in reserve. I don't think I've ever got too close to that reserve, but in the way that people who climb mountains and things do. But apparently, yes, your body wants to give up way before it knows that it's going to have to give up. So you do have to sort of push through that little bit.
You do. And that's true with music, isn't it? Is it not the same? I mean, it's that sort of thing of going and going until you get to that point you want to throw the guitar out the window type of thing, and then you have to put it down and walk away, and then you come back and suddenly it's there. You go, well, where were you?
Where were you yesterday?
Well, I was waiting for you to put the guitar down so I could actually sort it out.
So that I could,
instead of just smacking your head against the wall all the time. But anyway, so what happened then after you left school? Where did you go?
I went to I had a proper job for about I did some proper jobs for about a year to collect up enough money basically to go off to university. I worked in a building contractors, of all things, doing paperwork and filing. Just
to finish you off completely.
And photocopying, and I worked in a library as well for quite a while, which was nice
good,
because I love books, which is then why I went on to university and did, as I always say, half a degree in music. I did music and English as a joint degree, and
that's an interesting combination. Where did you do that?
I think it was always that, I say that I wasn't deterred, but I think it was always that thought in the back of my mind of, if I can't actually make a go of this and end up teaching guitar, maybe I'll become an English teacher. And it was also the fact that I enjoyed both of them, but it was a bit of a crazy combination in retrospect.
So where did you do that?
I was at Chichester.
Oh, right, okay.
University.
Yeah. I'll go down to Chichester quite a bit, actually.
So after my gap year, that's where I ended up, which is a lovely place to study with the cathedral and that kind of thing. But having said that, I mean, after coming out of it with the degree, I think the most sort of pivotal point of that for me was actually doing the dissertation in the last year, when I thought I've been doing far too much writing, I've got to do something practical. So I did my dissertation as a performance.
Right.
And I did ornithology with Charlie Parker and learnt the solo, which was
bloody hell
a pain.
Yeah, crikey.
Yeah, that took some doing. Yeah.
Mind you, he was on heroin. That's how.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I didn't do that. I didn't take that route. Yeah, maybe that's where I was going wrong.
Yeah, probably.
But
right. Okay.
I did that one, and I did Minor Swing with Django Reinhardt.
Right. Oh, that's brilliant.
And also another jazz standard, I think, where I could sing and take a bit of a breather. Still do a bit of singing.
Yeah.
But so that was the real thing for me that I came out of university with, I think.
Yeah. There's an interesting thing, isn't there, with Parker's stuff? I mean, often those songs, they're just chord progressions stolen from somewhere else.
Yeah,
you know,
because
was it ornithology? Is that high?
Yeah, How High the Moon. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it's like
there's a great Ella Fitzgerald version of that,
yeah,
where she kind of skits on what Charlie Parker's done.
Right.
She
right.
sort of scat sings.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. I didn't.
Yeah.
So that's interesting, because that's, again, it's part of that sort of creative thing of going like, oh yeah, just nick that.
Yeah.
Because again, you know, if you think about it, you can't do that. Why not? Just done it. You know?
Yes. Yeah.
And then sort of that sort of bebop thing of taking those ideas from other places just because you like the patterns that it's sort of doing. Yeah.
I think there was a song in Spitting Image actually where they did a they kind of aped an Oasis song, and they had the line in it, Jesus is hard to be original when there's only 12 notes in all the world.
Yeah. Well, that just about sums it up, really.
It's a good point. Yeah.
So that was an interesting combination. I thought that's again shows that you've got a different way of approaching the world, really.
Yeah, and again, it's that I think music and continuing in it and continuing to find something that really inspires you in it is all about that antidote to laziness, because it's very easy to get in a rut. If I'm teaching beginners for most of my week, so that if something challenging kind of comes my way, I do try not to say no. About 4 years ago, I did the guitar parts for West Side Story for a school production.
Yeah, best of luck.
Well, that was hard. Again, that was my favourite musical until I played in it.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, it's crazy.
It is, yeah, absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
They said they'd never seen so much writing on a score.
No, but it's because it's not
madness.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But so, what part did you do? Because there's no guitar part, is
there? There's a classical guitar. There's a kind of a semi-flamenco part, I suppose, in America and that kind of thing. But I think they'd condensed other parts, something like that. There was an electric guitar part, basically, or something you could play on electric, which probably doubled with other parts and things, which is just sort of lines.
But I mean, all that stuff, the time was just
it was crazy, and I did think I don't really want to do this. But then, of course, there's another part of me going, well, if this has come your way, this is the universe kind of saying, do this, and I don't get an awful lot of time for playing, sadly.
No,
with the teaching, I'm teaching sort of 5 days and 5 nights a week often, and the weekends are just trying to fit in having some life. But so I try not to say no to those kind of crazy.
Yeah. No, that's an amazing gig, though.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was amazing. It's lovely to have done it, but I don't think I'd want to do it again.
No. There's certain sort of shows that because I used to do a lot of shows with Tony and your other half, and that was one of those sort of things where you there was some that you looked at and you thought, no.
Yeah.
You know, Into the Woods, Sondheim, and people like things like that. You go like, no.
They don't lend themselves very well to guitar.
Well, they don't. That's the problem. No. That is the problem, because it's like, as you know, probably whoever's out there listening who plays guitar will know that they're always in unfavourable keys for guitar.
Yes. Yeah.
It's always the key for the brass or whatever. And you think, what the hell are we doing?
Be something flat, isn't it?
B flat, D flat, F, whatever. And you sort of, exactly, and everything's pretty rubbish.
Well, the next one, thankfully, that I've been asked to do is doing bass for Greece,
Oh yeah, okay.
One of the schools I teach at, which is, apart from the fact that it's bass guitar, which is not my first instrument by a long stretch, but at least it is it's a rock and roll music, so you can see where it's coming from.
Yeah, exactly, absolutely, yeah. And it's got all that sort of rock and roll sensibility to it as well.
Yeah,
So,
although perversely, I think I probably prefer West Side Story, but there we go.
Well, as a film, as long as you're not playing it. Exactly, yeah, that's right. So let's get into some of the things that I'll ask you some questions about.
Sure.
You know, how you got involved in the teaching. What did you, when you look back on things, how did you get started from your memory of what happened?
I started doing a few lessons, as I suppose people do. I started doing a few lessons just in the evening, for sort of once a week, for a friend of a friend's child who wanted to learn guitar.
So it was that your first way of getting your work, was just friends?
Probably was, yes, yeah. It was some sort of family friends who had a lad of about, I think he was 12 or 13, and I was sort of 17, and I went round and just did, sort of half an hour a week or something like that, just to start him off.
Yeah.
And then from there it kind of grew to other friends of friends or family members. I taught my young cousin for a little while as well. And then I carried on sort of teaching younger children and things at university, and they would actually come out. I hired one of the rooms,
So while you were at uni,
while I was there, to help kind of fund through it. Although obviously it was a drop in the ocean.
Yeah, but it's a start, isn't it?
But yeah, exactly. And sort of just built it up from there, the private teaching.
Yeah.
And then when I got out of university, they let me out. Not early for good behaviour, but when I left university, I just sort of straight away got CVs out, and I think it was the December after I'd left in the kind of October that I got my first school.
Yeah.
Which was really good. I mean, I really sort of fell on my feet there.
So what school did you get?
That was Chernold. That was a prep school in Maidstone. So that was a really nice start, actually. I'd probably still be there if it wasn't for the fact that obviously schools, their numbers wax away, so I just didn't have enough to keep going. But that was great, and that got me started, and then started to get known.
Well, this is interesting. Did you just get the one school, or did you get a couple that came out at the same time?
Well, I got that one, and then it must have been quite shortly afterwards. I'm not quite sure when. But I got another one, I started at, I think it was Sevenoaks Prep, and I can't remember how that one came about. I think, again, it may have just been CVs, and my CV happened to land, on the desk at the time when someone was leaving. And then from that prep school, I then went to Hilton Grange, where I've been for 12 years now. And I love it there, and they're going to have to force me out of there. They're going to have to push me out, because I really like that one. And that again was just somebody was leaving. The guitar teacher wanted to leave that school, and he just rang me up out of the blue, and I'd never even met him.
Well, this is really interesting. I'll tell you my story, because it's almost the same as yours, weirdly. I got a adult education thing going in Gravesend, and that was sort of strange how that developed. But what happened was that the principal there, because I was going in and not teaching guitar, I was doing something about starting a rock band up and how to put the whole thing together and whatever. I was probably about 20, I guess, and I'd just done a course up in London with some punk musicians, which was absolutely brilliant, and they were like managers and stuff for the Gang of Four and Human League, and there was a band called the Poison Girls that were part of this thing, and it was really, because it was very
familiar.
Yeah, it was very, very sort of street cred. So I got involved in that, but the principal said, they just they needed a guitar teacher at Metham School. The guitar teacher is just leaving. There's a guy called Gordon Giltrap. It was
wow.
Really?
Yeah.
It's like one of these like blasts from the past. So I took over Gordon's teaching.
Another very influential
composer,
actually.
Yeah, extraordinary. Yeah, so that's how I started off, and then because I got that, I then started to think, well, I had a classical guitar teacher who got me a at a public school, and then it sort of snowballed like this. So that's why I was asking you, did you just get one, or did you get like, it sort of there was a knock-on effect?
Yes.
Which sounds like that.
Yeah.
So I'm quite intrigued by this, because it's almost like, well, how do you explain? That's a bit of a weird one.
It does just go, doesn't it?
Well,
when
I
you get to
think
know
it does.
people,
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose that's one thing. But, you know, people that I've been working with then at other schools would say, oh, so-and-so's looking for a guitar teacher. Another school that I work at, would you be interested? And the answer to that is almost invariably yes, because you can almost never have too much work.
No, exactly. No,
because you never know when you won't be getting one.
No, things are a bit tougher now, because there are a lot of, so there's, you know, I think it's the world and its dog is teaching guitar now, whereas in the past there was just no one around.
Yeah, that is another thing actually that we've kind of noticed. Yeah.
And I think part of that problem is that, you know, we're actually part of the problem, because we've actually taught too many people to be able to go and do. So that is, you know, that is part of it, I think.
It's part of victim of your own success kind of thing.
Well, it is actually. I think so, and I've got no problems with that. I mean, the only thing I will say is I do realise that with a lot of schools that I go into, that I pick up the threads from somewhere else, is that, and you may have experienced this as well, that they didn't really want to be there, those people that were leaving, because you've got you've got a handful of people that are just about to give up type of idea. Yes.
Yeah, you often get brought in just to breathe life.
Yeah, exactly.
Like we've just got a couple
and you sort of think,
yeah,
there's a lot of people out there that actually make an instrument that's absolutely brilliant, so boring, that people actually want to stop, and you go like, how can you do that? That must be a skill, because
I think when you've lost your passion for something so entirely, and there's always going to be some days when you think,
but not like you can make it into an art form.
But when you've completely lost every shred of enthusiasm, just leave.
Yeah, exactly. It's just totally bizarre. I always find that sort of weird.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? Because obviously that just translates straight on. Teaching something is a really personal thing. It's and often teaching one-to-one, of course. It's a personality thing, and if a child or an adult can see that
I think you've hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
Absolutely there. It's a communication thing.
Yeah.
It just happens that you're teaching guitar.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think it is that communication thing. Because if somebody comes along and goes, you know, they're coming along for a lesson, and you're there and you're boring, that rubs off on whatever is going on, right? If people turn up for a lesson and they walk out the door thinking like, what was that? That's completely changed my view of the world, you know. And I think that's what music can do. I certainly know Tony's like this, but you know, people walk out and think like, what's happened to my mind?
So much information.
Exactly, yeah. So, and I think that's the important thing. I remember there was one lad who used to have lessons with me at one of the schools and left to go to university, and when he was in the sixth form, he said to me, when I first he was learning bass, this kid, he said, when I first used to come for lessons, he said, I thought you were completely mad. And I said, and now you know. He said, yeah. I do. You are mad.
That's confirmed it.
Yes, exactly. But I just thought that was brilliant. But that's the point. Otherwise, you know, if you're just like everybody else, and you're the same as, you know, the science teacher or the French teacher or whatever, and they're just trying to get through the day, I mean, what's the point, really? Seriously, because otherwise it doesn't. So I think that's a really interesting point you're saying there.
And it can, I mean, the teaching and being part of a school, and you have, you know, obviously you have rules, regulations, you know, there's paperwork, it's a strict sort of life. But if you can keep a little bit of that sort of germ of that bohemian kind of thing that you had when you were a teenager, thinking, oh, being a musician will be so cool because I'll be the crazy creative type.
Absolutely, totally agree.
Keep a little bit of that.
Then, or even a lot of that. I mean, because otherwise, as you say, you know, if you get people coming to you and you're like the safety valve for all this other stuff that's going on everywhere else, and they can come and just get away from all of that for a moment and do something else, then that makes a vast difference to
improvising and that kind of thing.
Totally. I do a lot of songwriting in my stuff.
Yeah, that's a really good.
But that type of thing where they can sort of improvise, and it's like, well, there's no right or wrong here. It's like, you know, do you like the sound of what you've just done? No, we'll change it then.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like it's wrong. It's like, well, you can make better
Yeah.
choices, can't
Yeah.
you?
Yeah.
You know, instead of going, no, that's definitely wrong, and you didn't show your workings.
No, exactly.
So,
I think maybe there's hope then, like you were saying, that these kids going down a route of, you know, passing exams to get the good job. If you can have a little outlet for that, a little bit of, this is, you know, nothing you do is wrong. They're only kind of, there's a bad choice of note, a bad choice of timing,
absolutely.
or poor or it doesn't sound as good as using
Or
this note.
unexpected.
Or unexpected, yeah.
Yeah.
Or jazzy, which people use as a catch-all for sounds dissonant.
Exactly. Well, I like Martin Taylor's description of jazz, which is not saying you're sorry, which I think is, you know,
Yeah, well,
quite nice actually, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you play what you want.
I'll
Just
say to them, yeah, if you play that note and it sounds really jarring, play it again and play it again.
Yeah.
And then anyone listening is going to go, well, he must have meant that.
Exactly
She
right.
must have meant that.
Exactly. So the interesting thing about that is that mindset, isn't it? It's that sort of thing. Well, actually, there are no rules here, right? So you know, you can just do what you want. Is so different to all the other ways of thinking.
Yeah.
And then if it's a case of, you know, this business of what is expected, right, in music. Do you expect that? And if you always only get what you expect, it becomes boring.
Yeah.
And you've got to have that unexpectedness to give it that percentage of, you know, which makes that piece of music or art form or something interesting, right? And it's that balance, and that's an interesting concept for people to grasp. But it's not just playing safe, you know. You've got to be there, pushing the boundaries. And
there is quite a, you know, the songwriting lesson actually is a really good one, because you can get quite a rigid structure within that, the sort of 1-4-5 and the you know. So if you write out all the chords and you say, you know, you're writing a song in D major, you've got D, you know, you've got E minor, F sharp minor, G major, A7, A major. But then you could say to them, well, but you don't have to necessarily play that. If you want to have a D major followed by an E major, you shouldn't really have one in there, but you can do it as long as you're aware that this is going to be a daring chord.
Exactly.
And why not use that to move into another key?
Absolutely.
Why not use that as your wormhole?
Yeah, exactly.
They love the concept of wormholes.
Yeah, that's an interesting way of doing it. I do it as doorways. Like, you know, here's the room, we're in C major, and you know, out there is G major, and the doorway is the chord that sits between the two chords, and then the confirmation of it is the 5. So you've got your 2-5-1 or whatever, and they can understand that. And if you're playing jazz, you just materialise in the kitchen, because you don't actually go from that to the related key. You just go to the 2 chord in another key. So
it's a good idea. It's like one of those interactive books where you can choose the outcome.
Yes,
except of course. Infinite outcomes.
Yes.
You don't have to choose one of those 3 options.
So, you know, either one of the. I'm quite interested that you use that term, sort of wormhole, because I think that's a very cool way of thinking of it actually. But again, it's a conceptual thing, isn't it? With it, once people understand that, you know, I often say to people about music, well, what is the music? I mean, if you think about it, if that's just muscle memory. Okay, you could do that if you were typing. That's muscle memory, right? So you know, where's the difference between that and music? You know, that's a bit of a difficult one. And if all this stuff is about memory, then what's that got to do with music? It's just memory. So now, where's the music? It's like saying, well, where's the art in art? You know, that pile of bricks. What is that? You know, is that the tent with people's names on it? Where's the art in that? And you know, until you get to that point of going, there it is.
All art is quite useless, as Oscar Wilde said.
Yeah.
So find the useless bit.
Yeah, exactly. It's that sort of bit where you get that bit that you can't grasp. It's like, there's the smoke. There it is. There.
There's the magic.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's that. So once I get that idea of it being more, it's what's going on here conceptually as like an unconscious feel or thing that is the communication. And again, where are you going to learn that? Somewhere else. I mean, you're not going to learn that in science, are you? Or maybe in quantum physics you might sort of stumble across something you go like, oh, that's a bit weird.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
You know, but we need to have that happening more in music, where you go like, oh, that's weird. Yeah.
Yeah. Why does that work? Yeah, it really shouldn't work, but it does. Yeah.
Well, that's Joe Pass used to call that the last rule of jazz. You know, if it sounds good,
great player.
yeah. If it sounds good,
yeah,
then do it. And that sort of makes
it always
a lot of
did
sense.
with him for some reason.
Strangely,
yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, what would you say then has been the main things that sort of stuck out about what you've done with your work, where you sort of go, that was a sort of pivotal thing?
I think, as I say, things like that, never sort of saying no to different performances and things. I mean, at my secondary school I teach at Ashford School recently, we did Stairway to Heaven with the recorder group, you know, and that kind of thing.
Right, well that is, so okay.
I suppose it's those little moments that make things more interesting and give you a bit more homework. But I think also it's those moments where you come back from a day of teaching, and you do have some days, as I sort of alluded to earlier, where you think, oh, that was just, you know, I've been just going over the C major scale, I've just been tuning up guitars all day. Where you come back and you think, I really saw something, you know, there, and this kid, the enthusiasm, you know, it something kind of lit up. And when you can see somebody going, oh, that's it, you know, that was great. Or when a child says to you, you know, that was a really great lesson, as they leave, and you think, oh, I've done something right. You know.
No, I totally agree.
So that does, yeah, as cynical as you want to get sometimes about, oh, I'm just, you know, going in, doing the same thing every day. That's the antidote to that, really, surely, when somebody says, oh, that's... And I think, obviously, seeing people going on to do things with music. The first kid I actually taught then went on to play at Glastonbury, sort of, I don't know, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And I heard about that on the grapevine and thought, brilliant. You know, he's carried on.
Yeah.
So that's always great when you see that you've changed something.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. I think they're the things that make you realise for yourself that, how can you put this? You sometimes, well, I was listening to a programme yesterday about heroes, you know, in the Greek thing, that the heroes always needed, like Achilles, needed to be told they were great, right? Or they had to be given things to, you know, qualify or justify that they were heroes. And in a way, it's that sort of thing of, you know, being a musician, you want somebody to stand around and say thank you.
Yes.
Or that was brilliant, or I really enjoyed that. But it doesn't matter what you think yourself. I mean, you've got to create a thick skin where you don't care what people think. But when people do turn up and say, that was great, or thank you, that was a lovely lesson, or you've changed my life, or something, it's that type of thing that makes you think, okay, that's nice. It's a
more mature version of the fame thing, I think, that you start off, you know, in your teens and 20s maybe thinking, I'm going to be famous. And I definitely saw myself as, I thought, I'm going to be the next Kate Bush. You know, people will be, you know, talking about me. I'll be on the covers of magazines. I'll be doing albums and live shows. And there's that point where you think, oh, actually, that, though, is looking for recognition and looking for that, oh, the world loves me. But from quite a disconnected point of view, maybe a shallow sort of a distance, because you won't have a personal connection with most of those people who are telling you you're wonderful for whatever reason.
That is very true. But the other interesting thing is as well, maybe that in a weird way, to a point, you can cope with that limited way of thinking when you're younger, because it is a limited way of thinking, because you don't look at it when you get older. You look at that and you think, would I really want to get to a point where everywhere I go, somebody is saying to me, "Oh, you're right. Yeah, thank you very much." Or I don't like that last album. You know, you think, "Oh, give us a bloody break, wouldn't you?"
Photographed going down to get your milk. And,
exactly, exactly. So I think that is what comes later when you look at it and you go, "Actually, I don't really want that." Yeah. Whereas when you're younger, that's not what comes across, because you want somebody to say that, don't you?
Yes. I'm sure that's something that we're lacking as as musicians, probably.
Yeah,
there
but
must have been some feeling that we wanted to be loved and admired. You know.
Yeah, but I think everybody does to some extent. It's just that
course,
we don't listen to the statistics, because I've often said to people when I do these things about how to get there type of thing, naivety is an important tool or attribute to have, because you've got to be naive to think that statistically you haven't got a catch chance in hell. But if you ignore the statistics, then you've got a chance, you see.
Yeah.
Because the statistics absolutely kill you as an artist in the water, because you can't argue the fact there are God knows how many million bands in the world, and there's only several thousand that are ever going to get there. So you don't statistically stand a catch chance. But of course that isn't true if you ignore it.
Yeah.
If you sort of mean, if you sort of ignore that and do that, then it's quite likely that, because you've had somebody that played at Glastonbury, I've got people that have, world tours, and somebody that plays with Sam Smith and blah 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 blah, somebody who plays with Adele and the rest, right? And you go and look at that and you think, well, work for them.
Yeah.
All right.
Exactly. Yeah.
But so that's another one where again you have to do that thing of slipping outside of the for want of a better word, reality, which is a bit questionable, and being in that sort of space where there are no rules, like the jazz thing, that you can suddenly go, well, what do we want then? What do we need here?
Yeah.
And I think that's an important aspect.
That's true. Yeah.
So
if you keep putting energy out into the universe.
Yeah. Yeah.
At some point, it's got to come back.
Yeah, it has got to come back. It has got to come back. So I think really what happens with that is, as you get older, maybe you start looking at it and thinking, do I really want to do that? I'm not really sure. Because it just completely messes your life up if you wanted to do anything else.
Yeah, exactly.
So
I don't think there are many opportunities, to be honest, for real, original people anymore in pop music. There may be offshoots of that and underground sort of things, but I don't
there
really
might
know
not
of
have
any
been.
truly original.
I don't know
That's
if
true.
there was.
Perhaps it was always a myth.
I think so,
Yeah.
because I think when you get a situation like Bowie, I do a lot of stuff about these sort of characters like Bowie and Iggy Pop and Mark Bolan, because a lot of them were inspired by Burroughs, William S. Burroughs. Burroughs was a crazy cat anyway, right? And the thing with Burroughs is that he was doing stuff. If and these people were really close to him. They considered him as a good friend. And Burroughs was a friend of Jagger and John Lennon and all the rest of this sort of crowd. And you think, well, this guy was like doing impossible things, and he was an old man by the time that he was friends with Bowie. And you think, well, if you've got a mate who's like that, who could, spend God knows how many years being a heroin addict, shooting his wife, getting away with it, spending God knows how many years in the jungle, getting himself off heroin by taking bucket loads of ayahuasca, and then coming back again, and then writing books and becoming famous and having all these incredible ideas, which became, sampling. He was the first guy to do, because he was using cut-up techniques with tapes. And you think, my God, this guy was an absolute genius. So I suppose if you had a mate like that, then anything is possible, because you look at that and you go, well...
Yeah, you do get these little rashes of inspirational people.
Yes, you do.
All together at the same time. And
You
of course
do.
they feed off each other.
Yes, and they're all mates with one another.
Yeah.
And that's when you look at that and you go, that's a bit weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
Page, Beck, Clapton, they're all friends with one another.
Yes.
It's a bit strange. They all come from the same place.
Yeah.
It's a bit odd.
Yeah.
Or, near enough, Bowie comes from Bowie, and he's only down the road from so-and-so. And you go...
It's the same with that LA session scene again with Steve Lukather and the Picaro brothers. And,
exactly.
Yeah,
Same,
David
they knew one
Page,
another.
all being together. Yeah, we all grew up from, just down the road from each other, and we went round and jammed. And
You said, look at that.
There's
and you go,
something in it,
really?
isn't there? It's catchy. Yeah.
Well, I was watching a thing of Billy Connolly. He was talking about...
Oh, yes, yeah.
These sort of mates that you're going like, all right, like all famous people from Glasgow and all knew one another early on.
Yeah.
That's a bit weird, isn't it? How many people live in Glasgow? 3.
Yeah.
No, more than 3.
Just a few more,
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
so.
So,
Well, I've not
yeah.
been, so I don't know. I haven't checked it. But,
No, but it's a lot more
I
than
think
3.
it's a few more. Yeah.
So yeah, you sort of look at that and you think, well, there's something in that sort of thing where there's, you know, things sort of break out like that. So, yeah, so going back to this sort of thing about the pivotal points that you think about your work, are there any other sort of things about the way that you think about what you do that may differ from other people in, you know, that are doing teaching, that you sort of go, yeah, that's different, I do that?
I think having on a small, you know, on a sort of minutiae level, having a link between everything and why everything is important. One thing that I certainly am always at pains to point out is why a scale fits to a chord, fits to an arpeggio. You know, they are all the same thing.
Yeah.
So I think giving them that understanding, because you'll often get, most people are better at one than the other. I've always preferred chords and harmony actually to single line, and a lot of guitarists obviously will be the other way around because they want solo, so they want to improvise a single line. But when you explain to them they're all the same thing, actually you can't have one in a vacuum, they all link up to each other. That's quite important, I think. And yeah, just we're quite free not having to follow, unless you're following the syllabus to a grade, but even then you've got freedom within that which classroom teachers don't have, which I do really like. That
totally
freedom to be able to turn up and go, we've been doing your grade 2 pieces and your whatever and your scales and whatever, but today we're just going to do, we're just going to try and write a song. We're just going to the old method of opening up a book and going, let's play the first line of this. How do you think this sentence would sound? That kind of thing. Just having that, mixing it up. Just
that's
little,
right. Well, I do a lot of that, as you know.
Yeah.
Anything to catch people on the back foot, really.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
know.
And bringing in aspects of like psychology, like you said, with what is this pile of bricks? Is it art or not? Like the functions of how many functions of a brick can you think of? Or, you know,
the old paperclip
that
one.
kind of thing. Yeah, but I think also never underestimate a sense of humour goes a long way with anything, and the fact that we can have a laugh and a joke. Obviously, it differs between the ages. With the little kids, they love the surrealism, so I think little kids love that sort of Python-esque stuff. So and all the silly voices come out as well. I mean, sitting there and calling an arpeggio an arpeggio. You know,
that's. I totally agree.
Just quirky, silly little things where they can go away and go, you know, we play it again from the top. You know, my science teacher doesn't say that.
No, exactly. No, absolutely. Or the fact that somebody's, you know, you say to people, one of the little things I like to do with kids is sort of say, what's your favourite subject? And they'll say whatever it is. And I say, do you like the teacher? And you go, yeah. And what's the subject you don't like? And they say that, and you go, do you like the teacher? You go, no.
Yeah.
And you go, that's strange, isn't it?
I think I see a pattern emerging here.
Don't you think that's weird? And they go, and you see the old cogs going in the. So you sort of think, you know, there's an important point now. If they enjoy being with you, and they find you funny or interesting or whatever, that goes a long way to learning. And as I said before, because you know so much about music is mechanical or just remembering. Anybody could do it. It's when you get to that point where you're trying to find that other thing that connects people together. That's probably, you know, maybe where the art is. And sometimes that just comes anyway. Sometimes people just do that and they don't even have to think about it. It's there.
Absolutely. Personality is really important. I always say that to people before they do their first lesson. You know, let's not, you know, unless it's, you know, with private lessons, you don't book up a block of lessons with me, because if you turn up and think, oh, you know, I can't get on with her, she drives me mad, you know, there's no point in going any further with it, because you have to have that bit of communication. You have to think, I can work with this person. You know?
Absolutely.
No one wants to work with someone that they can't stand, you know, and it's a similar thing to that. You've got to see something and think, yes, this person approaches it the same way as I do, or we have a similar sense of humour. you know, and yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with
follows
you. I
from
mean,
that.
I've had a couple of people in the past that turn up. You know, I often get people just, if they're interested in having lessons, just come over and have a chat. Bring the guitar over and we'll have a talk. And I've had a couple of people in the past where one guy came over and he'd had lessons in America or something, and he was over here for 6 months or something, and he had all these classical pieces, and every single note had a fingering note written next to it in pencil. And I went, so who's written all this stuff in there? You know, my teacher. And it was all like, oh, my teacher's amazing. And I was thinking, so your teacher is actually telling you which finger to use for every single note.
Yeah.
You know, and he's probably, this guy was probably like grade 5, grade 6 at least, right?
Yeah.
And you think,
so wise enough to make his own mind up.
Yeah, I was going, that's not teaching you anything.
No.
That's not teaching you how to work out, well, that's a dumb way to do that.
Yeah.
You know, why don't I do it this way? It's like, no, can you tell me which finger? Should it be the 4th finger I use on that note? So anyway,
please don't worship me.
So I said to him, so he said, oh, I'd really like to learn that piece. I went, okay, we'll go away and learn it for a week and I'll bring it back. And he went like, and I knew what I was going to say. It's like, could you tell me which fingers to use? I went, no, you've got to work it out for yourself. I didn't see him again. So there we go.
You know. No, but by that stage,
it's crazy, isn't it?
They've got to start to fly the nest, you know.
Yeah, well, I did it right from the beginning.
Yeah.
Just like get on with it, you know, and then gradually you think, well, actually that doesn't work for you, does it? If you think about it, so you need to go away and think about which fingers you use.
Yeah. If they turn up using just one finger, the first finger to play absolutely everything, that is a particular bugbear of mine. And I say, how do you think this is going to go in future when you've got
how fast can you roll
play?
with?
And how fast can you?
Yeah. But once they see that and they get like, I get that.
If you point out the logic behind something, and I always say to them, then again, if it works, if you can do it, if you're comfortable like that, go for it.
Yeah.
It's not an exact.
No,
science.
it's not. Well, exactly.
Yeah.
Good. Right. Well, that was very, very interesting, Jo. I think we'll sort of wrap up there because.
Because people will be.
That's good. Well, they'll be thinking, what on
off their chairs asleep.
No, I don't think so. Actually,
they'll be going out there and changing the world.
Just to sort of as a final thing that you could say, if there's anything you could say as a word of advice to somebody from your own experience for them, what would you say?
It's hard to think of something without being corny, because you could say.
Yeah, be corny.
Go off and be, I think the main thing is just that idea of living every day as if it's your last. That can sound a bit cataclysmic, but
no, I think it's a good one.
The thing of thinking, what would I want to do? What's holding me back? With a lot of people, it's minor things like somebody will think I'm silly, and I've tried never to get embarrassed, because I've realised I would spend my whole life just being embarrassed. So I might as well just
get on with it. Yeah.
Just get on with it and do it. And you often find then that other people will start to open up and follow suit. Yeah. And soon nobody will be embarrassed.
No. So just get on with.
Have no shame.
Yeah. Sort of think of it as today could be your last, so you might as well do something amazing.
Yeah. Do those little fun things or those little nice things that you wanted to do, and go off and have a go at learning that piece that you've always thought. Yeah.
That's a nice.
To do that.
That's a nice thought. Yeah. Okay. Well, it was nice to speak to you.
And you.
Yeah, great. Thanks ever so much. Thanks to Jo for the interview. And for more information on what she's doing or what I'm doing, you can come to www.bluescampuk.co.uk or vichynan.com. Speak to you soon.